In order to understand the life of addiction, let's start from the beginning. What's really going on in the brain when addiction develops, and why does it feel so hard to stop? Addiction isn't just a habit or the lack of willpower. It's a disruption in how brain circuits normally work. When someone repeatedly uses an addictive substance or engages in certain behaviors like gambling, the brain's reward system gets hijacked, literally rewiring itself so that addiction-related thoughts and cues take priority over everything else. Why? Because your subconscious brain is wired to repeat behaviors that help you survive, such as eating and learning. Everything else is secondary. It does this using a reward system, mainly dopamine. Some illicit drugs, gambling, and certain behaviors cause dopamine spikes far higher than natural rewards. The brain doesn't care about the activity or drug. It cares about the dopamine. And to our brain, dopamine doesn't mean pleasure. It means this matters for survival. This is more important than food, safety, or relationships. So do it again. In order to encourage you to do it again, it makes you feel good. So the brain begins rewiring itself around that. With repetition, the pathways linked to the behavior strengthen, and the other pathways, such as the need for long-term planning, weaken. The brain reallocates attention, motivation, and memory toward the dopamine-creating behavior. These are the beginning stages of cravings and a process called incentive sensitization. The flood of dopamine feels good, but as the action becomes more consistent over time, the brain becomes hypersensitized. The dopamine doesn't just feel good, it starts to feel important, dramatically increasing wanting without necessarily increasing pleasure. This hypersensitization leads to a concept called incentive salience. Incentive salience is the brain's way of assigning extra importance to something way beyond normal preference. It's no longer just, I like this. It becomes, I need this for survival. Get it now. At this point, the brain is reinforcing the behavior in two ways: physically, through brain chemistry, and mentally, through learning and memory. This whole process happens at a subconscious level. The brain starts pushing the behavior automatically before a person consciously realizes it. At a certain point, the addiction is driven by a dysregulated reward system that has weakened the prefrontal cortex, which governs judgment, decision-making, and impulse control, and strengthened the amygdala, which processes emotions and short-term pleasure. It links substances with feelings, making it harder to resist urges and evaluate negative consequences. In short time, this subconscious drive turns into a craving. That's why cravings can feel sudden, intense, and overwhelming. They aren't just thoughts. They're the result of brain chemistry, learned associations, and repeated reinforcement. This creates a positive feedback loop. Cravings lead to substance use. Use brings relief or pleasure. The brain strengthens the pathway, and future cravings become even stronger. That positive feedback is what separates addiction from other habits. It's not just a bad choice. It is a short circuit in the brain that creates a conditioned physiological response. Cravings are not a moral failure. They are a biological drive mixed with learned behavior. This is why people with addictions often say they feel powerless over addiction. And that's also why early intervention matters. The earlier these patterns are addressed with appropriate and effective treatment, the easier they are to change and the better the outcomes. Another driver of addiction are triggers, which are more about memories and emotions than brain chemistry and learned reward pathways. Triggers are reminders that put someone into a mental or emotional state that increases vulnerability to using drugs. Common triggers include boredom, stress, money problems, relationship conflict, certain people or places, specific sights or smells. Triggers can activate cravings, but cravings can also show up on their own, even without a clear trigger. Early effective interventions that can reverse the process is something that can start at home. Learning mindfulness skills has been shown to improve life outcomes, in particular by focusing on a person's response in high-risk situations when there aren't other coping mechanisms and support systems in place. Why does this work? The answer lies in how we are conditioned to respond to stimuli. Today, our attention is getting pulled in 1,000 directions. Between breaking news, notifications, ads, and social media, we're constantly switching focus, rarely slowing down or staying fully present with any one thing. To keep up, our brains have developed an efficient but risky shortcut. It starts running on autopilot. Instead of carefully thinking through every moment, we rely on automatic responses to respond to stimuli. It's easier, it saves energy, and most of the time, these habits work just fine. But the downside is that our attention slowly stops going where we want it to go, and starts going wherever the loudest stimulus is. You've seen this before. You're standing at a buffet. The sights and smells trigger hunger, and before you know it, your plate is full even if you weren't that hungry. That's autopilot at work. Most automatic responses aren't dangerous. We can usually catch them and adjust. But with addiction, cravings and triggers are routinely the loudest stimulus, and the brain's shortcuts, reinforced through hypersensitization and incentive salience, are deeply disrupted. It becomes stimulus, automatic response. The brain has learned that responding immediately feels easier and more rewarding than stopping to think. Viktor Frankl said it best: "In the space between stimulus and response lies our freedom and power to choose." Most of the time, we don't even notice that space. With an automatic response, the process is simple and fast. Something happens, and we react. Stimulus, then response. No pause, no awareness. Mindfulness skills slow that down. Instead of 2 steps, the practitioner actively creates 2 additional steps in between. First, the stimulus happens. Second, we notice it and describe it without judging it. Third, we check in with what we're feeling about it, and only then do we choose how to respond. That small pause between stimuli and response is where our power lies, allowing our conscious mind to override our subconscious brain. Addiction is a brain disorder formed over repeated use that prioritizes short-term survival signals over long-term well-being, short-circuiting millions of years of evolution designed to balance immediate survival with thoughtful, long-term decision-making.